Hello and welcome to episode number 79 of the WP Café show with your hosts, me, Keith Devon, and Mark Wilkinson. So today we're going to be talking about the journey I think that we've been on from project work to products. So we've called this From Projects to Products, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I thought, Mark and I have been on a bit of a journey, and it's been interesting to compare the two states of business and the good and the bad. So I thought it'd be interesting for people just to go through some of that. So hopefully that's going to be interesting for you all. Thank you for joining us today. If you are joining us live on YouTube, please do say hello in the chat. It's always nice to see who you are and where you're from. Also, chat along with us. We're always keen to answer questions and respond to comments as they come in live. You could be listening later on YouTube or on the podcast too. So welcome to you too. As always, if you do like what we do, it's only a little thing, but hitting that like button, I don't know, probably makes a bit of a difference. And also subscribing if you want to make sure you don't miss new content like this. We try to do these shows once a week where we just ramble on about WordPress topics and kind of what's at the top of our mind. So if you do want to kind of get notified of that, make sure you're either subscribed using your podcast player or through YouTube. Over to you, Mark. How have you been this week?
Yeah, pretty good. Don't forget, we are live on X as well, formerly Twitter, of course.
I always forget that. Yeah, I don't know if anybody watches this on that.
We do. We have someone, is it Emily, I think, for the last couple of weeks has been watching on X.
Oh, that's cool.
And does comment, so do get involved if you're on there. Yeah, my week's been pretty normal, really, this week. Just cracking on with some support stuff and supporting our clients. Nothing really exciting going on, to be honest. Finished my home DIY networking project. Well, I say finished. I have one thing to do. That's fill a hole in the wall, which is proving a little bit more tricky than I thought. But other than that, it's fine. I got the electrics put into the cupboard upstairs, which is where everything kind of comes into. So yeah, it's all working rather well, which is good.
Very good.
What about you? How's your week?
It's been all right. I think this week has been a really good little mini encapsulation of what we're going to talk about today in terms of I've been doing some client-based stuff. I've been doing a lot of product stuff, and I think that's why this came up, because it's like I'm constantly comparing what it feels like to be in that world as opposed to the other world. So yeah, it's a good week to be chatting about this stuff, but generally good. I've enjoyed some of the challenges, getting stuck into some marketing stuff for RecPress, our job board, done for you job board service. Yeah, so we can chat about that a little bit potentially as we go through. I don't want it to all be about that, but let's crack on.
How are we going to do this? Are we going to go all the good stuff and then all the bad stuff, or are we going to go?
Yeah, it feels weird to do it that way, Ryan, but I do think we should.
Right.
I think we go with the good stuff first. So I'll let you start, Mark. Right. What is the first thing that you've enjoyed about?
I think before we start, it's worth saying, I think I'm right in saying, we didn't sit down and make a conscious decision to switch to products. No. We didn't sort of say, have a meeting and decide projects are not for us anymore. Let's build something. It kind of fell in our lap in a way. So it's not as though we've made that conscious decision. So it's just worth saying that to start with, I think, that these things kind of naturally happened.
Can I jump in on that, though? Because I think you're partly right. Well, you're partly right. But I do think that we were having conversations around building an asset. Like the frustrations were already starting to show around the fact that what we did was just fire and forget. Like you go through a client process and then that relationship it comes and goes. You get the money, you're on to the next thing. And we didn't. But we'll come back into that more. But there were conversations. You're right that the kind of product idea itself kind of fell in our lap, and it wasn't like we just made a decision one day, but we were having the conversations around that And I think so. The ground was fertile from when that seed
Correct.
fell.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going pros first. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I suppose the first pro on my list is that when you have a productized business or a product-based business, you have a monthly recurring revenue all the time, which is much more steady, much more stable than it is when you are building out projects where you might have a bit of bust and boom. You might have several months where you get loads of work and lots of money, and then you might have a few months where there's little going on and so on. So you've got this sort of up and down. Whereas when you're building the products like ours, particularly once it starts to grow and get more customers, you've got this steady sort of line of income. Hopefully it's growing and going up, which it kind of still is for us, just a little bit. And that's really good. It makes me more confident in business decisions. Should we spend X on this? Should we take a few more dividends? Should we whatever? Then it makes me more confident because I know that the recurring revenue is there to bring that sort of business money back up to where perhaps you like it to be. So that's my first pro that I think is better when you're selling products.
Yeah, that's the first thing I had on my list was recurring revenue, and it's for lots of reasons. Interesting though that not every product has the same type of recurring revenue as we do because we're subscription based. So if you're selling something that's like a one-time buy this thing, it costs 10 quid, 50 quid, whatever, and it's a one-off payment. Yes, if you've set up a bit of a machine, the marketing machine and a sales machine of some kind, you can kind of see that you'll get a certain number every month, but something could easily change where that kind of falls. Whereas with us, even if we get no new customers, we've got a pretty guaranteed income for at least 12 months, which is the subscription model is great for that. It gives us even more kind of certainty going forward, which
and I think
good.
When we built Job Relay, we said right at the start that it must be a subscription-based model. It can't be a purchase this thing and you get support for 12 months and then that's it. You either, you can carry on using it or you pay again for the support. It is a subscription-based model. If you don't pay for it, you can't use it and it won't work. And I think that was a really big decision we made. And I think that's been proven on the back of the fact that about 2 years ago, you were doing some research on our SEO and we found that there was a particular blog post on our blog that was just dwarfing any other content on our website. And I don't mean by it was getting like 25 more hits. It was like literally treble the amount of hits that any other piece of content got, even more.
Yeah.
So Keith had the great idea. It was actually a website, a web article, a blog about how to build or write a website specification. And you had the idea, well, let's sort of monetize it. Let's sort of make some templates, make some additional information that people can download and buy and use once they've wrote the article, once they've read the article. And that was very successful. Like I don't know how much it's made us. It's thousands of pounds it's made that article.
For like 2 hours work.
But for like 2 hours work. So it's really good. But right now it's kind of stopped, hasn't it? So people have bought it that are going to find it. And it's stopped. So there's no recurring revenue based on that. And I think that's what would happen if you went for a product possibly without that subscription model, unless you did stuff with it, basically. But
I mean, it could happen with the subscription model as well. It's just going to take longer for that to die off because you know you'll get the odd renewal and whatever. So yeah, that's very true. So recurring revenue obviously just sounds nice. I think people get that that's generally a good thing, but like digging into the specifics of kind of why that's a good thing, I wrote a couple of notes on this. One of them is that it just takes the pressure off, the mental pressure that business owners, freelancers, etc., are under to get that next invoice sent out, get that next payment through is huge. Like it is very, very stressful. Most people aren't sitting there with hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank and know that they've got, oh, it's all right. They've got like a 3-month runway or a 6 month runway before they need to really start worrying about money. I think the vast majority of businesses are, the runway's a lot shorter than that, and it's a constant stress. Yeah. So that gets alleviated, which is almost priceless in itself. It also just like, I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit. It gives you a little bit of room just to kind of breathe and make decisions with a bit more confidence as well. Like you said, I think that's really important. It means that I know I can spend all day today exploring something, being curious about something, testing something, and I haven't lost revenue, I haven't lost income. There's opportunity costs for everything, but that's slightly different. Whereas if you're a freelancer and you don't work for a day, you're X amount of money down on that month, that week, whatever. And then you just mentioned, I
was going to take the RecPress work you've been doing in the last few weeks, learning how to use Google Ads and things like that. And that was something that we're both like, well, yeah, have a go at it. It's fine. Like we can afford that. We can take that. Is it a risk? I don't know if it's a risk, but take that risk. Is it going to work? Is it going to sell anymore? Because we've got that recurring income, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the next thing on your pros list, Mark?
So the next thing I had was that we hopefully will have an asset that is saleable or has value when we decide that we no longer want to continue with this product.
Yeah.
We will have a customer base. Currently, we've got 350 customers buying Job Relay. I think it's 20 odd, is it, on RecPress? That's an asset in itself, and then obviously the product itself is an asset. It is a product that's making profit. So when we decide that this is no longer for us, whenever that may be, 5, 10, 15 years, then hopefully, if it's still around, and hopefully it will be, because we'll have kept it modern and kept it moving in the right direction, then there's something there to sell and get some benefit from at the end of it.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling. I mean, there's no guarantee that anyone's ever going to buy it for a price that would suit us, but I think there is something nice about thinking that at the end of the journey, there might be something in it for us, rather than just the business turns off and our income is just sort of turns off. Like, our income would turn off, but we'd get like a lump sum, almost like a little mini pension or retirement plan kind of thing. And kind of linked into that, I really like the way it feels like the work that we do on these products is aggregating towards something bigger and bigger, rather than just you get really good. Like, you have to solve a particular problem for a client, right? So I've got really in depth with the Google Maps for this particular client. I've had to do something really super bespoke and custom, and it's amazing, and I got paid well for it, and then that's gone. That's like 3 weeks later, I've forgotten what we did. I don't have any skills to bring forward. I don't have any knowledge to bring forward, except the kind of rough knowledge that I once did this thing. Whereas when we're working on these products, we're building in features and functionality that are improving the value of it over time, and it's getting hopefully better and better and better. And I think that feels good.
In the past few months, where we've been doing project work for people, and you've been thinking, what's the benefit of this going to be for us in 12 months' time? It's going to have a major benefit for the client, but we start to think in that mindset of building something up for the future. And when someone comes along with suggestions for RecPress or for Job Relay or products, you kind of look at that and you think, not just the cost of doing that now for this client, it's actually what value can that add to this thing to make it even better for everybody in the future, make it more sellable, make it so we can sell more of these things. And that just feels really good. You're not just building this for building its sake and having this thing built for this one client. You're building it for everybody else that might use this product for future sales and future growth. So that's good as well.
Yeah, and the fixes that you make, so it's not just new features as well. Like, we can fix bugs, and it's fixed for 300 odd people,
350 people,
which is really cool.
Which is a con as well. We'll come on to that later.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the cons as well. So one of the things on my list, and I think this is a really big one for us. So one of the pros of product work is scoping and selling and pricing is so much easier. Now, I think we've done whole episodes in the past on how we really struggle with that side of things. So scoping projects, coming up with technical specifications. In fact, we did an episode very recently on some of this stuff, and pricing and everything, and how that's just very difficult. There's a whole big song and a dance that you go through before you've even won the work. Like how much time, the time that you put in is going to be worth it, but not if you don't win the project, and blah, 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 blah. So you go round and round and round. And it's just, we really became quite tired of that. We weren't particularly good at it. I think maybe some people are just better at that than we are. But we weren't good at it. And
I feel we got much better at it, but then WordPress changed. So
that's true.
What you could do in WordPress, the block editor, just became, you couldn't really pin it down anymore. So it became, how do you say what you're going to style, or, because there's so much flexibility there. So I feel we did get quite good at it. But then everything changed, and we felt like we were back to the same, that song and the dance about what's included and what's not on the scope of the project, which was really, really hard to narrow down.
Yeah, absolutely. So the scoping and the pricing is just like, the price is what it is. The features are what they are to an extent. Yeah. Like we've talked again on previous episodes about how for Job Relay, that's definitely the case. That's very locked down. It does one thing and does it very well. Whereas with RecPress, it's slightly more open, and you start to see that kind of difficulty and scoping it. Yeah, exactly. So
we've got some suggestions to help pin that down a bit more.
We do, and we're going to implement some of those.
But with Job Relay, the price is the price. And do people ask for discounts all the time? Do they get them? No. Literally, that's what we say on the calls. This is the price. We feel this is a good price for the product. It provides value to you, the customer. Most people, that's fine. The only discounts we do provide is if a customer wants multiple licenses. So they're running pretty much the same thing on multiple websites, and it seems right to let them have some sort of a discount. If that's more than sort of 3 or 4 websites that they want to run it on, that makes sense to us. So they get a discount there. So the price is fixed. And like you said, the scope, it does what it does. It's pretty confined as to what it does. It's built in a way that it can be expanded and altered and changed with hooks and filters. And we are always doing more work to document those, but they are not, what's the word? Like they're offered to customers as valuable, parts of the products, but they're not something we will do for the customer as part of the price. Read the documentation. It's all there for you to look at. And if it's not, then we'll write it and put it on the website so that you can understand it. But it's not something we will look into as part of this product. And that's quite defined, which is good. The scope is kind of fixed.
Just a little reminder before we move on. If you're watching along on YouTube, please do say hello in the chat. And also, if you've got any comments or questions on what we've talked about already, please do write them in there, and we will try to get to them. I've had 2 hellos so far. So hello, Elliot, and hello, Nicholas.
I think Nicholas is a new viewer. I don't know.
Great to have you along.
Nicholas before.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
For joining us.
Welcome. So we kind of didn't really cover this initially when we were talking about recurring revenue, but one of the pros is profitability. I feel like the work that we do on Job Relay especially is highly profitable in terms of like the hours that we put in compared to what we get out of it is like nothing we saw in the project client services kind of world. That might be different for different products. I think we've got lucky to an extent that what we do is really high value for the people that use it. So, but yeah, profitability for us is great on that side of things, which is really satisfying. I had on my list, Mark, that I don't feel like I have to chase new tech all the time. I think what I was getting at there was the frustration I was starting to feel with developing WordPress websites.
Yeah.
Around the block editor and full site editing I was trying to lock down a kind of best practice process, and the sands were just shifting around me, and I was just getting, oh my goodness, I don't. Whereas with our products, they do what they do in a certain way. Yes, WordPress might change. Yes, we'll need to evolve it, but actually, what we're doing and the technology that we use is quite stable, and I can see working for a long time, to be honest.
Well, we've been saying for Job Really, haven't we, that you've been saying, oh, what happens if these posting providers change the way they send the data and so on, and you're right, but there's two things with that. One, there's nothing to say we can't change ourselves, so that's fine. We can evolve with them. But the other thing is that the technologies that they're all using, are, like they're just HTTP. They've been used for decades. The way they send the data and stuff. So it's pretty stable in terms of what they do. And they've done the same for the last 10 years. And who knows, I'm sure there'll be tweaks and fixes, but essentially it's probably going to be pretty stable going forward for Job Really anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely been a plus for me. Are there any more on your plus list? I've got a couple more.
I've got one. I've written down more control over development. And I think what I mean by that is that you're in control of what you do and don't do. So if you're in a project situation where you're looking after websites for a customer and they come to you with a strong suggestion, we really need this feature, and you're either, it's a terrible idea, you shouldn't really be doing it like that, or I don't know how to do it, it's going to be really hard, and we have to go through that scoping dance that we've just been talking about. You sometimes feel you can't say no, and you end up doing something that you're not really comfortable with, or and that can be a good thing sometimes, don't get me wrong, you learn, etc. But with your product, you're ultimately in control of what you do and you don't do. If it's a really good idea and it's hard, then fine, we have a go at it. And it's like we were saying before, I don't feel as though that time is wasted because it's our product. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Yeah. Whereas if it's a really good idea and it takes a long time, but it has lots of value, again, you're in control of that and you can see the benefit. And I don't feel like when I'm sat developing those features, I'm clock watching. I've quoted this for this, and I've already spent this long. It doesn't seem to matter as much how long it takes, and it's more about getting it right. So maybe that's just a mindset thing, but I think that's what I mean by that. So you've got a bit more control over what you do and what you don't do.
Yeah.
What else have you got?
Yeah, one more for me, and it's marketing. So we are, as regular listeners will know, not very good at marketing. But I'm not saying that products make marketing easier, because they don't, but we have been lucky in that Job Relay is kind of sold to some extent for us by our partners. So we're integrated with 5 different partners at the moment, and they will push people to us. So when people reach out to them and say, I want to get jobs on my WordPress website, they'll be like, talk to the guys at Job Relay. And on top of that, it's so niche that it's very kind of fairly easy to rank for this stuff too. I mean, there are some competitors on Google, but we're not selling used cars. We're not selling something that there's just a lot of competition to fight through for. So that helps too.
Definitely. Thank you to our partners, first of all. That'd be gratefully received that they're working with us. And in essence, you said some of the competition on Google, there are some like genuine competitors, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the competitors that we have on Google are actually web design agencies that are building recruitment sites that actually use our product anyway. Yeah. So very much in a way, if they get the work, they come to us for the solution. So it doesn't actually compete with us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There are a few that do compete with us, but we've got a lot of development agencies that use our products. So if they get the work for it, then we get the work for it as well. So it's good for both sides.
Yeah, it works well. Cool. Just before we jump into the bad, just a couple of hellos and a couple of points and questions in the comments. I don't know who you put on screen already, Mark.
All of the hellos, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Hello to Sam, Joel, Paul, Mark. Hi there. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So Joel asked, what are the ongoing costs to Job Relay if you have a very low maintenance client who never needs to contact you? So as in the cost to us. So we've someone signed up to Job Relay, we've set them up, and we never hear from them again. What are the ongoing costs?
Running the server for the portion of the whatever they send to it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Very low.
Running the website.
Very low.
So, like, we have licenses for various different plugins that we use. But again, if you divide that out to the clients and stuff, very low we're talking about. If they never contact us, very low. I couldn't put a percentage on it, but it's very low running costs for us, very low.
Yeah. So after the first year, those relationships they get very profitable if things are running well. The value that we provide is that if something breaks, we're there and we fix it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're paying for. That insurance that, if there's a problem with the job feed, it gets fixed. And Mark is pretty much doing that every day. People are emailing and saying, this isn't coming through, that's not coming through, something's changed, blah, blah, blah. And that's the value. So I don't know. I mean, we don't track hours, so we can't say that an average client takes X number of hours per year. That would be very, very interesting to know.
Yeah, it would.
But we know that it's more than covered by the.
When we have a setup time, so we have a sales call time, usually a 15-20 minute sales call. A purchase would then lead to obviously an installation and setup, and usually that's no more than an hour. And then obviously support coming through, obviously to pick up those issues. But just coming back to the support, I think that's one of the successes of the product, isn't that the traditional way of doing this would be you'd go to an agency, I want to build an integration with an API, and they'd, well, yeah, we've never done that before, we'll do that. They'd go away and do that custom development at a cost, which is, I don't know, but at probably 3 or 4 times the amount that you're going to buy Job Relay for.
Well, we used to charge, we used to do it.
Yeah.
We used to do that work, and it was at least £1,000.
Yeah. And then you would, you'd have that work done for you, and then, they'd have it for 6 months, and all of a sudden something would break. Who do they go for help? They go back to the agency, they say, oh, well, we'll charge you for that support. And then they're like, well, I don't, it's working, we haven't changed anything. So everyone's just a bit frustrated. Whereas in this instance, they've just got someone to go to. What's going on? It's not posting jobs. And we can get it fixed.
And this is kind of mission. This is why there's so much value to the client, because this is like mission critical stuff. Like their recruitment agencies and their job board isn't working. Like that needs to be fixed. So they're happy to pay it, which is the whole value-based pricing thing. Kind of, we haven't priced it based on how long it takes us to deliver. We've priced it in part on that, and in part on the value that it provides to the client based on the alternatives and what they would do otherwise. So, very, very good question.
Joel asked another question, probably a follow-on from that. Wondered if there might be an integration cost for the job providers, i.e. Broadbean. So we're integrated with Broadbean, Logic Melon, Idaboo, Job Adder, and Workable recently. The answer to that is no, not to us. All of these partners have welcomed our services that they can offer their clients, because it gives them other options that clients want, and they don't understand WordPress, so they don't really want to get involved in that side of things. Some of our partners charge the client to set up a feed of data, but the partners that do that would have done that anyway. They would always charge for integrating a website, so it doesn't really matter what they're using.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I've had a cough all week, and it's finally decided to come back again.
Yeah.
Right, we're on to the cons, are we?
Bad? Yeah.
Yeah, let's jump into the bad.
Go for it. Give me your first one.
So the first one I had is the work is like the same. So support emails come through. They're very often the same email. This isn't working. You look at it. It's very often the same thing that wasn't working. You send it back, and it can just be a bit, backwards and forwards and a bit boring in that aspect. I think you said that as well. But
I just didn't have that on my list, that it's kind of boring. But it can't. That stuff isn't it? And frustrating. It can be very frustrating.
Yeah, and I think there's more we can do to to alleviate some of that as we learn and so on. But don't get me wrong, it's not like, you know, the most boring thing in the world. You are helping people, which is always nice. You get some lovely emails back when everything's fixed, and they're like, "Oh, amazing, you're my savior," and all this stuff, which is really nice to have. But it is kind of the same stuff that you're always looking at on a daily basis, so it can be a little bit.
Go and check that this setting's correct. Go and hit the endpoint here. Check that that's correct. Do this thing. Yeah. There's a lot of that, and a lot of emailing back and forward, asking for information as well. Trying to get blood from a stone sometimes to get the information that you actually need.
And it's actually, I don't know, it's a con or a pro really, but it's about learning how to do support. You know, you've got to take your emotion out of it, and you've got to get to the crux of the problem, if that makes sense. You know, because you've got to remember that the customer is emailing you because there's a problem, so they're not particularly happy, and you've got to write your responses in a way that gets to the crux of the problem and gets the information that you need as quickly as possible without upsetting them any further, obviously. Which is, you learn how to sort of to do it, but you're asking them questions, and I get this a lot actually. You're asking them questions which they think are trivial and ridiculous, but they're really important. I'm trying to help you get to the problem. All you need to do is answer this question. I know it might sound stupid, but you've got to sort of go through that process, and you get better at it the more you do it.
Yeah. My first point on the bad, I just wrote support versus relationships, and what I meant by that is, I feel now we're responding to like transactional support emails with our customers rather than building relationships with clients. And I really love the relationships that we built with some of our clients. Like, we've worked with some of our web development clients for years, and we've been on a journey with them, and we trust each other, and we communicate well together. And that's not always the case with the product stuff. Quite often we're getting emails from people who haven't even necessarily interacted with either of us, so they don't know us. There's no face to the name, and like you said, they're pissed off. They're in a situation where something isn't working, and there's not that kind of respect and that relationship to fall back on. So that's definitely a con for me.
I think related to that and to the support we were just talking about is that you get people emailing you, and I'm finding this more and more now with their customer base has got much larger. They email you in a personal way, which is great, you know, but I can't remember who they are. And I can't remember the history of the project. I can't remember what the website is. So it's back to, you know, I have to ask the most basic questions like, what's your website URL? What's your license key? And they're like, sure, you already know that. I talked to you 12 months ago about this, and we had a conversation about it. But I can't remember. So I've got to sort of have those. And again, so you're losing that personal touch with, like you said, they're just people, not clients. And that's hard to get over sometimes. And I've written actually as a comment right at the bottom of my list, it's hard to keep in touch with clients and customers. How do you do the integration, that's it, and then they might touch base because it's not working and they're annoyed. So most of the touch points with you is not actually a positive one, except when you fix something and they're happy about it. So is there something we should perhaps look into? Is there a way that which we can touch base with our clients in a positive way throughout the journey of their lifetime as our customer? Because we don't really do that at the moment.
We don't. No. Because it feels like the only way we could realistically do that is to automate it, and then it doesn't feel personal at all. Yeah. And then you get into the problem of, like, you know, you send an automated email saying, "Oh, hey, we haven't caught up in a while," and they'll be like, we literally emailed each other yesterday," and the system didn't know it. So I'm a bit wary of that. But yeah, definitely, it'd be really nice to be. Maybe we can just send them useful information every so often, or, hey, we've updated this thing, like, how's it going with the service or whatever. I think we should do more of that. I think that'll be a really positive thing. I just looking at my list of the bad, I have like a few things that I think they're all very related, and the first one I've written down is that I miss having a blank slate. And I think what I mean by that, there's lots of things I mean by that. I am the type of personality who likes new things. So I like building things, not maintaining things. I like the creative process. I like the excitement of that blank slate. And, in 3 weeks, we're going to have something like out of nothing. I like the opportunity to learn new stuff and do things a better way the next time you do it. So there's a lot there. But yeah, for me, that's something I really miss. I loved, after all the song and dance about scoping and pricing and contracts were finalized, the start of a project was a beautiful time.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? You've got everything signed off. You've got that first payment. I can get on with it now. I've got this blank slate. I know what we're doing. That is nice. Yeah,
I miss it. I miss that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something you don't get, and I think I've kind of tied to that is you've got this legacy code all the time. So whatever you build on has to work with what's already there. So you never get that opportunity to draw a blank slate and do something fresh.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do, it's going to affect those 350 customers. So you've got to make sure that whatever you do, you don't break something. So developing is a challenge in a very different way, I think, because whatever you've built, you've got to make sure that it's going to keep running for everybody. So it's a very different mentality. Whereas when you're building projects, you've got this one customer, you've got this code base that runs for this customer, and you can decide to chuck it all in the bin and start again and do something completely new because it's just going to affect this customer. But you can't do that when you're building a product because you've got all these other people to make sure it works for.
And there's so many improvements we want to make to the code, and we're kind of a little bit scared to do it because we know that there's a lot of sites relying on the solution that we offer. So I have sympathy now for products and services that you think, why have they not changed this so that it's better? The answer is because it kind of works, and changing it is a massive risk and a huge expense. Not to say it's not the right thing to do, but I can get the resistance to just sit with something that's working and just leave it, don't touch it. So I think I mentioned something there in the good of product was that I don't have to chase new technology all the time. The bad about products is that I'm not forced to learn new stuff all the time. I actually really like learning new stuff. I didn't love having to deal with WordPress in its flux. But for example, I'm a CSS guy at heart. That's what I love to do. And I just absolutely loved on project work being handed a design. You're like, ooh, that's a challenge. How am I gonna do that? And then you're like, okay, oh yeah, so there's this new CSS property that I could use. I've never used that before. Let's try clip path, or let's try background blend modes or something. There's all this cool stuff that was coming along with CSS that I couldn't wait to use. And I'm not really doing that anymore. There's nobody pushing me to just push my limits and my boundaries and pushing me to learn new things. So that's a big con for me, and I feel like I'm stagnating a little bit.
I've got the same here. I've got two things that are kind of linked to that. I've got less development innovation, and learning new stuff I've written less likely, because your product is kind of like in a box. So I can't just build X because it's not nothing to do with the product, for example. Everything you do has got to be related to this thing that these customers are using. And it's got to be something that they want and that they'll need and that they'll buy your product for. So it just restricts your innovation and what you can develop for and learning new stuff all the time. It doesn't stop it, don't get me wrong, but it's much, like you said, you don't just get this shiny new thing and it's like, oh, how am I going to do that all the time? It's very much more restricted than that, which can be sad in a way because you don't get that sort of feeling like you were saying about building something new. So definitely.
I think that's mostly it for me in terms of like the cons. I don't know if there's any. Are there any more for
No,
you,
I think
Mark?
I've covered mine, I think, yeah. I don't know if anyone's watching or listening along, if you've got any questions on anything we've said, any of the pros, the cons, any of the products that we have,
Yeah.
let us know. It'd be good to understand if you've got anything that you want to ask. Elliot's just said, good point about feature releases, House of Cards scenario. A new feature for one request isn't necessarily good for 1,000 users. Yeah, and that's what you've got to constantly think about. So we get support emails from customers. I want to do this. Most of the time, it's got nothing to do with our product. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. But you think, well, actually, we could do this for you because we've got this filter or this hook or something like that we could do. But you think, well, should I? Because if I do that, then we're going to have to look after that in the future. So when we build feature X for everybody in 2 years' time, that thing we've just built for you won't work. And keeping track of those things is, I would say, it's not impossible, but it is impossible, really. You can't really do that, what you've done for every client. So it becomes very difficult. So you've then got the decision, well, do we do this for the customer with that caveat, or do we not? They want this thing. It does make it much more difficult to do, but they're not the challenges you can solve. So it's just solving different problems in different ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it definitely makes development harder.
A good example of that is with RecPress, for example. So you've built that in a really extensible way, which is how you develop for WordPress, which is amazing. But because of that, on a few of our RecPress clients' websites, we now have like a RecPress customizations plugin that uses the RecPress hooks.
Yes.
What happens when we change those hooks? When we refactor RecPress, that's fine. We can make sure RecPress within itself works perfectly. But now there's all these people with individual customized plugins all over the place trying to use hooks that now don't work or don't exist or work differently. So you can see how,
well, the good thing is that
very
they won't
quickly
break.
builds up. Yeah.
If a hook doesn't exist, then WordPress doesn't do anything, basically.
No, that's true. But the functionality might.
But the functionality
break.
will obviously not work. So that's something to think about. But
yeah.
But yeah, I think you have when you start a product, and I think more with RecPress than Job Relay, you get to a certain number of users, and I think we're probably there now with RecPress. We've had enough people use it. We know what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
So it's about how do we fix what's wrong with it. And we've said this with RecPress. It might be starting again is the fix, and actually wiping what we've done and handling those 20 customers and what we do with them. Do we move them across manually, or do we leave them where they are, and still support them? Because your first effort's never the best. You know what I mean? And you need people using it to get to the point where you know what's wrong and what's right. I feel like with RecPress, we've got that now. We've got, 80% of it's really good, but 20% is constantly causing a problem for us, and we really want to change it. So it's just how do we go about doing that change and making it work?
Yeah.
Have we got some more comments? Yes.
Yeah, a couple from Mark. Thanks for comments, Mark. So first one, he says, strict adherence to versioning. If you break hooks, then don't update the tech on their site to, for example, version 2. I think I understand that. And he says, also recommend to include a version number in the hook names.
So I've seen that before.
Yeah. That's not a terrible idea either. Yeah. So we're going to have to think about this at some point because I think it's inevitable that we're going to update both of these products at some point. One more from Mark. For an example of this, see the REST API, which includes the version number in the endpoint pass. Yeah, that's exactly what we've been thinking of doing with Job Relay, is to have a version 2 endpoint, for example. It's not as straightforward as that, though, because we've got to get our partners to then send some things to the new endpoint. some clients to the old endpoint. So there's or we do that routing somehow ourselves. So there's lots to consider in that. But yeah, really good suggestions from Mark. I just want to wrap up because we've gone long again with this episode. I hope you're enjoying the kind of slightly longer form stuff. I think we're trying to cover topics in maybe a little bit more depth than previously. So the shows are a little bit longer. I want to say as a kind of my closing remarks, I guess, is that I feel like we've been really lucky in a sense. You know, it's easy to sit here and say, "Oh, it's been great this move," and hopefully you've seen that it's not all roses. Like, I think it's been a positive move for us, and if we could go back in time, we would do it again. But there are challenges. But I would say that I do feel like we've been quite lucky because of the way that product kind of evolved, like Mark said, without us making a really conscious decision that we were going to go into that space and then creating that product from scratch. But I would also say that we were in the mindset to accept that change. So if you're thinking about this kind of thing and you want to maybe do this yourselves, your agency, or as a freelancer, just keep your mind open to those opportunities. They're probably all around you. Like, any of your clients could ask for a feature on their website that could potentially be turned into some kind of product. And you only need to start small. Like Mark said, we started with a really simple PDF download for like 10 quid. And that whetted our appetite for how it feels to get those emails saying someone's bought your product, someone's bought your product, someone's bought your product. So just keep your mind open to it. Look for those opportunities, try them out, be brave, experiment. We've tried stuff that hasn't worked as well.
Lots.
Yeah. So we've done a fair bit that's really made us no money. So yeah, we've definitely got failures under our belt as well.
Something else I would say is that if you'd have said to me, you know, I don't know, back in 2018 that like, oh, you will have built, or we will have built a product that is run on 350 websites. I mean, that's really scary. That's like, oh my God, you know, that's quite scary. And if I can do it and Keith can do it, so can you. Like, just build it. There's nothing stopping you.
About us.
You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to work, and you can get it working. So just build it and try and sell it. If we can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep an eye out for that. Just the value. Like, what do your customers really, really value that you think you could package up and deliver again and again and again and again? And hopefully you can find something, and hopefully you'll be on a similar journey and similar success, and maybe we can hear from you one day. It'd be great. Definitely. I think that's enough for today. If you've enjoyed the show, please do drop us a like on YouTube. Please do consider subscribing either on YouTube or through your podcast player. Follow us on Twitter at WP Cafe Show. Is that right? There's no just WP Cafe Show. You'll find us on there. You'll find us on there. And yeah, thanks for joining us, and see you next week. Same kind of time. Bye.